Greeting everyone. Welcome back to a continuation of this series. Today we are going to zoom in, take a deep dive into the earliest Quranic manuscripts, at least the Quranic manuscripts that have been attributed to Uthman, 6 of them to be exact. And while that might be the case, we are actually calling this body of manuscripts the 6 hopeless manuscripts, and you'll see why. With me here in studio to discuss all of this is Dr. J. Smith. Dr. J, welcome back.
Well, thank you.
Why are we calling him hopeless?
Because there's not much hope in them if they want to say that these are 7th century. Not one of them is 7th century. I know the Birmingham Folio, they'd like to save 7th. We're going to do a whole episode on the Birmingham Folio at another time. But let's just take a look at them and let's look at the ones that are the most important. Now remember, when you look at a comparative, when we talk about our manuscripts, we have the 4 metropolitan codices, but we have 8,500 Greek manuscripts. We have 10,000 Latin Vulgates. We have about another 9,000 in other languages. You add that up together, that's about 24,000 manuscripts that we can look at for the New Testament. They only really have 6 versus 24,000. Who do you think has the better manuscript evidence?
We do.
Absolutely, we do. Yeah. And they are much earlier than the manuscripts that we have for. So let's look at the first one here. This is known as the Topkapı. This is the one that's in Turkey. This is the most famous, probably the best one. I've got the facsimile of this in my office, and it is about 99% of the Qur'an, but it has 2,170 variants. That means words or phrases that are different in this manuscript from the Qur'an that we use today. This is the Hafs text that we use today, or the one that I like to use that's in English and Arabic here. So this is not the same manuscript, and what's more, the date for this, there's just been a new study out that actually puts this to the mid-8th century, about the time of the Abbasids, when the Abbasids were coming to power. So it's about 100 years after Muhammad. It is not the right century. The next one that I'm going to put up there is the Samarkand. That's in Uzbekistan. This is known as a very famous manuscript. It's using, if you look at it, it's a monumental text. Some people date it to 720, others date it to 790. So it's somewhere in the 8th century. I would date it probably the earlier date, but it's got the monumental type of standard, which is borrowed from the Christian texts, the Christian manuscripts. What's interesting is it only goes up to Surah 43. And amongst those 43 surahs, there's 114 surahs, 114 books in the Quran. Only up to Surah 43, that's about half the Quran that exists in that manuscript. Interestingly, even amongst those 43 surahs, there's only one that's complete, one surah that has complete verses, and 16 of them don't even exist of the 43. So you can see it's missing all kinds. The most damaging thing about this manuscript is that it's written by many different hands, and so it has an enormous amount of grammatical mistakes. Arabic grammatical mistakes. And Dr. Francois Doroche, who is the world's leading authority on it, he says that this is an embarrassment. Don't even use it. Altıkılıç and Ekmel Sanalü, the two Muslim scholars who have looked at this matter, they would have the same agreement. They're embarrassed by this because it is done so inaccurately by amateurs. Let's then look at the Ma'il. The Ma'il is the one that's in England. It's in London. It's at the Riblack Gallery there in the British Museum. Go and see it. It's lovely. It's a gorgeous looking manuscript. It also only has up to Surah 43. It's the best of the earliest man. In fact, it would be one of the earliest because it uses a much earlier script. If you look at it.
The Ma'il script is the Hijazi script.
The Hijazi script,
right.
Ma'il script. So that's what they call from the Hijaz, from the central part of Arabia. The problem is that is not from the central part of Arabia. That's actually from a Nabatean Aramaic script. So it is much further north. It is from Jordan. What we know is Jordan today, about 600 miles further north. Right. But it has all kinds of manuscript variants, and it only includes about half the Quran. The other one that is interesting is the Petropolitanus, which is in the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. Francois Doroche is the one that controls this manuscript. It's about only 19% of the Quran. It has 93 variants, 93 manuscript variants within just that 19%. The Husseini manuscript is the one that Muslims love the most because it's probably one of the most beautiful ones. To look at it, it just looks gorgeous. It's what we would call a monumental text.
Monumental text, which is later text, by the way.
It's much later text.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating about this one is in Cairo there, and it's treasured by Muslims all over the world. But when you open its pages, you will see it is full of what we call coverings.
And it's in Kufic also.
It's in Kufic, which means it would be from Iraq. So it is it's just south of Baghdad, and it would be an Abbasid text. Yet it's full of covering after covering after covering. There is one page that has 8 different coverings. When you're covering something, that means you're censoring it. And when you cover it, you either write over top or you leave it blank.
That's right.
What is left behind now corresponds with this script, the Hafs text.
Which indicate, as our friend Dr. Brubaker indicated, that it's kind of suspicious that why these coverings now are leading you to Hafs, which mean that it was done a later time.
Okay, be careful. Not since 1924. This is during the Ottoman period.
No, what I'm saying, it would have been done at a later time to try to coincide with the
1300 to today. Yeah. So the last 700 years is when this was going on. During the Ottomans, because the Ottomans had chosen the Hafs text as their official text.
Exactly.
The Ottomans controlled all these manuscripts, by the way. All of these came under their control. And many of them were brought up to Istanbul, where the Ottoman Empire had its headquarters. And then they were sent out as presents to other different cities. That's why the Husseini doesn't come from Cairo. It actually comes from Kufa, from Iraq. But it's now residing there in Cairo. And probably the most exciting is this one here. And I'm going to let you talk. This is your manuscript, the Sana'a. Tell me about the Sana'a manuscript.
Well, I mean, it's a bodies of manuscripts. I mean, I'm only focused on one aspect of it. It's a palimpsest. Why is it important? Palimpsests mean that it was written on leather, and we know that it was written on leather. First layer was erased, washed off, and then they wrote a second layer. Now, when you use ultraviolet, basically lighting technology, which is available, they can see the original writing that was washed off, and they also obviously can see the new writing. And they discovered that the original writing has variations from what we call the Hafs, the standard Qur'an, and even the second layer, the upper layer. So that was the lower layer, now the upper layer. Also, it does have variations, although the scholars will argue that the variations in the upper layer will match what we call the canonized reading.
Now, the palimpsest is really a small part of it, and it's really about 70 verses. Am I correct?
Almost, yeah.
And within those 70 verses, how many differences are there between the lower text and the upper text? Do you know off the hand? 63 differences.
There is a lot of differences.
63 differences.
Very high percentage.
Just 7 verses, which suggests to me this is really, I mean, you look at the differences. Hatun and I did a whole series just looking at the difference between the upper and lower text on those 70 verses. And it completely changes the meaning of the verse. So obviously there is a censorship, there's a changing between the lower and the upper layer. The lower layer has been dated to around the late 7th century. The upper layer you would date to what? 705 is what I've been hearing.
I mean, it's between I don't have the exact date in my head right now, but it's almost around that time between the
early 8th century.
Yeah, 650 to 705, something like that. Yeah.
Now, just look at the picture that I have there. This is from Gerrit Puyn's facsimile. He showed me this when I was at his home there in Germany. And you look on the right side, you'll see it's a completely different script from the left side.
Correct.
That's chapter 19 on the right side. That is chapter 20. Chapter 19 on the side, that's chapter 21 on the left side. What happened to 20 and, that's chapter 22 on the left side. What happened to chapter 20 and 20?
They're not in order, technically speaking.
And you notice the 2 different scripts, which means, and he said there's about 60 years between these 2 scripts.
And different scribe, obviously.
Different scribes, and take a look at all the orange marks. He says every time you see an orange mark, that is a manuscript variant from the Hafs that we have in our hand today.
Correct.
He said there's over 1,000 of these manuscript variants. And that's what he just showed me from his house. And I took a picture, so it's of his facsimile. That's not the original. This is from a film that he took when he was there in 1981. So you can see this is a really problematic. Probably the Sana'a is the most exciting because it's the oldest of all the manuscripts. Let's conclude. What do we know about these manuscripts? When you look at these 6 manuscripts, I'll look at the slide again. Notice what we have found. Number 1. None of them are from the 7th century. Parts of them, like the lower part of the palimpsest, may be from the 7th century. I would suggest the Birmingham Folio, which is only two pages of 33 verses. It is from the 7th century, I have no doubt, but it has nothing to do with Islam. It's all pre-Islamic, mostly Christian and Jewish material from writings from the 1400 BC, also from the second century AD, and from 500 AD. Right. These are just borrowings that have they've slapped into those 33 verses, which is what we're going to find out later is exactly what most of the Quran is made up of. So none of them are complete. None of these manuscripts are complete. The top copy is the best. None of them completely agree with each other, and what's more, none of them completely agree with this book, which is the Hafs Quran, which is the official text that is used all over the world today. By 93% of all Muslims use this text. Was first made official by the Ottomans in the Ottoman period, and then made official by King Fahd in 1985 as the official text for the whole world. Now that's hugely important. All of them have hundreds, if not even thousands, of subsequent manuscript variants, proving that none of these manuscripts are the original Quran. And as late as the 8th century, there were many different types of Qurans.
That's true. If they were the original, then why were they being fixed and corrected?
So where is the original? And with that, we end.
Amen. Thank you so much as always. Thank you, everybody. Hoping that you've been enjoying this series, and we will continue, of course, to unpack all of that for you in the upcoming episodes. Until then, have a blessed day. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, CIRA International, and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.